So in our previous class, we have understood that files and the IO streams are two different entities which are whose purpose is different, but combinedly we normally use them for file handlers. So first, let's check out files or file class, right? So file class is used to do operations on file and directories. So we have under files we have a file class and a directory class, right, which is used to actually do some operations on file systems and directories. Right? When I say directories, like removing a directory, creating a directory, right, getting all the files from directories, right, reading all the files. So we will check out everything, whatever we have in directories, and also files. When we say file, file is a class which interacts directly with the end file, right? Whereas your directory is used only to work with your main directory folders, not the files. And we have two different processing here. So let's start with mainly a file, and let's see what different operations which we can do using files first. Right. So let me create a new project. Let me call it as startup project. Okay, so our file systems as IO streams, as I said, is under system.IO stream, IO namespace, right? All the classes of files, directories, and streams are tagged under system.io namespace. Right? So let's start with file class. We have something called file. Now this is a class which actually works with the end file, right? To create a file or to write or to get the properties of files and everything. So first let's see what different things we do. Let me call it as file f is equal to new. So let's first consider there is a path in here. Let me take a variable called file path is equal to, so let me take I'm just taking some path into it. So here is a path which you have, and let me consider it as some sample .txt. And this is my path which I have. So you can see for the path I gave symbol called @, right? Because you know that slash is the one which is a sequence, right? Which makes, in the combination of slash and some character, will actually make a registered value. Like you have slash and slash t, right? Slash n is for new and slash t is for tab. So which means slash and the character, it actually interprets with some other meaning actually. So that's the reason why to do all the escaping we use @, which means whenever we use it actually tells CLR that don't take any escape sequence or the registered tokens here, just go with whatever is mentioned. See here, if I don't mention @ here, like it will give you all errors over here, unrecognized escape sequence, because slash s is not registered. fine. Whereas if there was slash t or slash n or other sequences which are registered, then it will not do that. So in order to skip that, we have LLS. Right? So this is something which is a file path I have. Now here you can see I don't have that file yet. Right? So here what I am going to do. So let's first see how to create a file. Right? So first let's check the file if file exists or not. So that we can check using file class. Now in file class all the methods are static. Right? You can see file dot exists, you can check here as file. Let me call it as a static. So if it exists and we are going to make it as not, which means if file doesn't exist, then we have something called file dot create. Now here while creating files, right, we can mention a path over here which will be considered, and you can see the return type of file is a stream. Now whenever you are creating a file, right, it will actually give you a stream as output. Now this output is basically used to write content into file, right? But as of now, as we are not going to look into that stream, so we are going to close it. Now why we should close it? After creating this file, if you don't close the stream, right, then which means your file will be locked first, right? And until unless you close the stream, that will not be released. You will also see that part. So as of now, let me take, I want to create a file path. Now this is something and dot and close. So that the stream will be closed. Now I am checking whether file exists or not, and then I am doing some create. We should check my file and create. And after that, let me write down. Where's all this? You can see object output. Let's go ahead and see. Now you can see there's a file called sample here, and you can see the size of file is 0 KB. Right? Why 0 KB? Because we just did something called create a file, and we haven't started writing anything into file. Right? So that's the reason why we can see it's just a 0 KB, and we got a file being created. Now this time, whenever you run it again, right, let me put a debug point here. So you can see when I run this, so this file already exists now, right? This time, so it will just skip it. We'll check whether file is there or not. So this will give you a boolean value, whether it exists or not. Let me print even that one, even before this. Let me go console. Let's print the file. Right, which will give you boolean value. So when you run this, you will see true, because it's going to return either a true or a false. Right, based on the file you have, right? And then if it is not there, then we are going to create it. So this is something which is a file creation. Same way, you can delete your file. Let's say I want to delete, then you have your file class dot delete, right? Delete a path. So I want to delete. utility. Let's say I want to check whether file exists or not, and then create. So this delete, you can see it doesn't give any output, right? And each method in file, go ahead and check the methods here. It can be delete or file.create. See at the bottom, it actually gave some exception types. Now these are predicted exceptions. While creating a file, you may get these exceptions. IO part 2, IO exception, right? Not support exception, unauthorized access, attuned exception, right? So many things. You can see that there is something called directory not found exception, right? Where if you do anything wrong in that tree, it may be directory error. Now, based on these exceptions, you can go ahead and cache specific exception, right? Now let's see whether this is working fine or not. Let's run this. I can see file exists false, which means delete operation is successful, right? And it created again. Fine. So if you go and see here, the file will be created at the latest point of time. So that is something which is your delete operation, right, which we have. And then let's see. Let me create one more path here. Let me call it as static string dir path, directory path. And let me take this directory. I'm not going to press the file here, but then now here, as we have files, right? File create, delete, and all. So we also have something called file dot like file dot copy. So this is to copy a file from a source to destination. If you do any other file path, right? So this file will be copied to that folder. So let's see how it's going to work. Now let's say I want this file to be copied to sample1.txt. It is file path. Now the source path is file path and the destination file path is file path. Now you can see whenever you're copying, you can see it doesn't give any output. Right? And let's see how it is. So we gave .txt, right? Okay. There was a question from we gave txt file, right? .txt, right? With respect to extension, it will create. Right. Now let's run this. It is not a notepad file; it's a plain txt file, basically, right? Which we now indicate. Now you can see it's operation successful. The file copied. Now go ahead. You can see we have a file. Same file will be copied at the directory wherever you want. Right? Now you can see even these are the 0 pgm because we haven't yet created any data in it. Right? So this is one more file operation. Let's go ahead and see file dot. So let's check. Open and all we'll see when we come to. So these are the functions which we have in file class. So writing into file, we'll see when we actually start the scripts, right? So here, to do the reverse engineering, like after creating file, you may want different read contents in it, right? Which means you may want to get more and more details of a file, right? Let's say you have a path and you have passed it and you want to read it. So before reading it, you have to get the info, let's say, right? So for that, we have a class called file info. let's say it's equal to new, and we go off here, we have to do a file path. Now let's see what all properties it will give you. So with the file info, you get all related properties of your file. Like you have file info, like it's a name here. Let's take the basic one. Like this will give you the actual name of the file. Right? You can see here. Let me copy and comment on these things. So let's not delete and create it again. Let's create it once. Now you can see here, as soon as I executed it, right, it actually gave me some error. That's why it went out. So let's say I'm gonna need key outside the sketch, and here I'm gonna keep it as so let's run this and see our exception. Now you can see here the exception. Right? The file already exists. You're trying to copy one file to other file, right? And you can see it's an exception. Right? Where we are trying to override the file, or we are trying to copy one file to other file. Now here you can see in file copy itself, when I right click, we have something called overwrite. Okay? Do you want to overwrite the same file or not? Let me make it true and run this. Now you can see you got a name, which means if you can go and see here, your sample.txt got created at same time we have. Now, which means it is overriding. Now, if you use true option, be careful during actually providing it true. If you already have some files, right, it will be completely deleted and it will be completely replaced with a new file you copied. So that is your override operation, right? So same way, let's see the file info. Now you can see the file info. The name is sample.txt, right? Same way, let's go ahead and see various internal properties we have in file info. We have finfo. We have something called full name. Full name will give you a complete path, right? Same way, we have constant line. We have something called directory to give you directory. Right? Let me copy this and let me show you more things. We also have something called directory name. So directory name will give you the base, the mother directory name only, right? And the directory will give you a complete one. And then we have something called length, right? So length you get it in bytes. So how many bytes you have. Now, as a file is 0, right, it will return you as 0 byte, right? And then we have file info dot something called created time, right? Normally when you go ahead here, you can see date modified now, right? So this is something which will give you a last created. Same way you have something called last modified or last write time. You have two different times here. Well, you can see this. So let's run this and compare. Now you can see here. So you have a file name, or sorry, just a name, and then you have full name, which will give you a complete path of file. And you have directory and directory, if you can see. So directory will give you a path, and directory name also will give a path, not the other directory. And the length, you can see it's 0 bytes, as it doesn't have anything, right? You have 0. And it is always bytes. It won't give you in MBs or anything. You have to convert it to the convention you want. But it will give you file length or file size in 0 bytes. see you have creation date time. We created this time at so and so time, and then we were doing some operations on it, right? So last batch date time is right. We did some different operations on it. So that's the reason why you can see difference, right? So this is about your file class, right? Where you can do different manipulations to file. Now, whatever we have done only to the physical form of file, right? We haven't touched anything with the content part. We'll come to the content part later. Now here, after file, we have something called a directory. Right? Now let's see the directory part. So here we have a directory class, right? Now as we have a file class to work with files, right? We have that. So let's use a simple exists of directory, right? Now let me call directory part here, right? If directory part doesn't exist, which means this will give you whether directory is there or not, like a boolean value. And if not, it will give you directory dot create directory. Or we have to give the path. Now if you give this directory, create directory will give you directory info. Now we have file info to get all information of files, right? Same way you have directory info to get all the information of files. But while creating files, right, it will give you file stream, which is used to read or write into file. But here, as directory is, it's like a shell inside which there will be some files, right? That's the reason why while creating directory, it will give you a directory info, which means you don't have to close on it, right? Let me call it as directory. So here, as of now, we just mentioned the simple directory. Let me give something like folder 1, right? Till code, you have everything. I just gave folder 1 here, right? Now, which means directory will not be in existence, and we are going to create the directory. You can see here, I don't have any folder called 1. Let me run this. Right? You can see operation successful. Go back to folder here. Now you can see folder 1 got created. Right? Now let's get back here. Now one step ahead. Let's say if you have nested folders. When I say nested folders, multiple level of folders. Let's say 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Right? Now, as of now, we have seen creating only one folder. But if I have a folder path which gives me multiple levels of folder which are not formed, my actual directory exists in only folder number 1. But I am trying to create multiple folders here. So how is it possible? So you create a directory, right? We create, you can see here, it creates all the directories and even the subdirectories if you mention it here. Now these are subdirectories. When I look from one folder, all your 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are your subdirectories. So let's run this and see. Let's create it. Now you can see how it's successful. Now you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? You have all the folders. Right? This is something which will give you a directory. Now, to delete a directory, you have directory say dot delete, and you have to mention a directory. Now you have two options here. You have a recursive, right? Recursive is it will delete even the subfolders, right? The folders inside which you have, right? Or if you give directly this, it will not go in recursive way. right? To check whether there are files or not. So let's give you a directory path. Right? As of now, we are pointing to 6 folder, right? So let's see how it's going to work. Let me put a breakpoint there. Now here I'm in a 6 folder here. Let me just go back. You can see our folder 6 got it, right? 1 level which got it. Now if I continue this running, now we can see we have created a 6 again because we are creating this directory again. Now let's say I want to delete everything from code. Like let's say I want to delete right. Now here let's run this and see how it works. So let me zoom in. Now this will give you an exception, right? Because we haven't mentioned any option that we have to queue. Because now you can see that directory is not empty, which means it says there are some files or folders inside that which are the data. For that reason, we have to provide or give permission to make it reverse. Sum this different. First, do we have anything else there? File or directory is not empty. 5 for you can see all the folders inside code, whatever we have opted for, got deleted. Now, why it didn't deleted this? Because my file is open, right? So this is my CS intro, which is my project, right? So this was my project. That's the reason why it didn't delete anything, right? So you can see even this project deleted everything except my project called files, right? I don't know whether it will work now or not. It deleted everything, right? Now it actually see whenever it is deleting everything, right? Now if your file is open, now even it deleted everything here, solutions, everything. But what happened while deleting your files project, right? While deleting your file project, it was in use. One file was in use. So that's the reason why it stopped. It gave an exception. That's it. After that, whatever, I mean, it was intending to delete, right? It actually stopped at there. It was deleting something and it didn't came to one. That's the reason why these two folders are there. Right? If you give one folder, see here, I just gave code/1, which means I want to delete everything in here. Let's say, right? Now let me run this. Oops. So let me make it startup and run this. Successful, and let's go back here. You can see everything in one got deleted. Right? Whatever we had in one. So that's how we can actually work with our directory. Directory. Now let me just comment this delete part, and now let's go to the directory info part. So directory info obviously will give you all the information so that you know that. And let me make it as directory So this is your directory path. They're existing. So here let's see what all different things we have. So anyways, we don't have this one now, right? So we can remove that. So we have only code, and I have removed the delete part so that we don't delete any other important files now. Now let's see what all the things we have here. Right line of, let's say here, or obviously will have a name, the name of the directory. Same way, let me take home and we, let's see. And then we have something called full name, which will give you a complete path, right? And then you have something called parent and parent and root. Main things. The parent will give you under which folder it is, and root will give you in which directory it is there. And you have created type, and you have last, and different properties you have in that. So let's run this and see. You can see here your folder name is code, your full path is the complete directory path we have till code, and the parent will give you you can see here it's an online training, which is code folder is within this folder, right? It will give you that, fine, and then it will give you the root. Root is directory. You can see here my directory called code is in dmode drive, and you can see the creation date time and the last write date time for this, and then operation. So this is no directory information. Now, apart from this, we have one very important thing in directory info is if you want to get all the files or directories inside the folder, you can get it through this. Right? How? Let's see. So let's see, you have this directory info, the dir. Now you have something called get. You can see there is something called get files. Right? If there are any files, then it will actually give you files. Now if you go into code, right, there are two files, sample and sample one, and these are directory. Right? So here let's say it as get files. Now you can see this get files will give you file info array. Okay. So get files will give you a file info array. Right, now you can actually iterate through this, and you can get the file names, or we have for each, let's say file info. We are going to get, let's say, file info in, what is the connection? ARR FI, file info, let's say. Now here let me print dot write line of fi dot name. Right. Now before getting file infos, all the files from directory, let me just put a D in here. Right, and now you have your file name, and now, I mean, if you want more properties, you can actually get, let's say you want full name also for this, yes, you can get it. Right, it will give you complete access to it. Let's run this. Right, you can see now you have sample.txt, two files you have, sample.txt and sample1.txt, and the path is this. Right. This is your directory info, which will give you all files. Same way, you have something called get directories. Now this will get all the internal directories of your all the internal directories of your directory. So this will give you this, the output will be your directory info array. Directory info array, here. Right. Now let's read up the directory. So for the directory info, let's give inside the CS intro folder path, because we have many folders, right? You can see there are many folders in which. Let's give that. Right. So let me go ahead and do for each. We have directory, make it as item, let's leave it, put about an array. Here we are, let's say, which is directory. Now let me change item of me. I want to get the directory names of all directories directories I have in my CS intro. Alright, so on this, now you can see you have these many directories. Right? You have collections, you have CS intro, you have layer types, you have files, you have loops, you have operators, strings, study, right? Different directories. Now in this way, if you want to write recursively, making, getting things and all, right? You can do that. Now, one step I can show you here that, let's say in any directory, if you have any files, let's say here, I'll check something called item dot get files, right? Obviously, this is a directory info, right? From directory info, I'm getting all directories, right? And these directories will return array of info directory, which means each and every directory will have its own directory info ready. Now I can get a files dot, I have something called length, right? If files get files length is greater than 0, it means that in that directory you may have some files, right? So in that situation, let's iterate through. First, let's get the files. How can I get the files? So I can have file info array, right, which is ARR, let's say F is equal to my current directory is item dot get files, and let me add to this. For each file info, let me call it as file item in my ARRF. What I'm doing is I'm going into directories and trying to get files in it. One level I'm going. Let's say if it goes to, let's say, files, there are few files, app, files and program.cs. It won't touch these directories, because again you have to go recursively if you want to go multiple directories inside. I'm just going one step ahead and getting all the files. So let me just print it. Console dot write line on. Let me give some tab space so that we can distinguish between. File item dot. That's a name. I'm just getting the files. Right. So let's run this. Now you can see, right, it gives a clear picture that in your access mode view, right, you have these many things. You have CS for it, I have app.configure program.cs. Now you can see in collections you have many classes. We have created stack, queue, right, CS for it, queues, default, app.configure. Control statements you have, CS intro you have, right. You can see loops you have parent.cs, salary.cs, vehicle.cs, sample interface.cs now, right. So here, this is how you get directory and internal files here. Same way, if you want to check out the directories also, you can check get files. You can also check get directories. If the length of get directories is greater than 0, again. So in this way, you can actually get all the details of file which we have seen till now, file class which we use to do different operations on files, and for the directory info, right, you can actually get into this, right, where we are reading directory info part and then getting all the details in terms of that. Now you can see whatever we have done today, right, is either a directory or a physical file which we have touched, right. We haven't touched anything on content of files and everything, right, which will actually give us an option to work on streams, right. So this is the file. This is something which is about the file systems, which is the directories and the file class. So in our next class, we'll see how to work with streams, which is IO streams, right. So this will actually give you, this will enable us to do content management of files, right, where you can actually go write something, read something, right, append something, right. So with this